What's up, fight fans? Mainman Mademan here. Y'all know how I get down. We talking boxing, man. What up to the fam? What up to everybody in Mainman Mademan's boxing forum on Facebook? Hey, look, the thing is this, man. Word on the curb. Eddie Hearn in recent interviews telling the boxing world that after Demetrius Andrade's next fight, that he is expecting for Demetrius Andrade to no longer be under the Matchroom Promotions banner. He is basically saying he is going to be splitting ways with Andrade after his next fight. And he doesn't see this as no animosity or nothing like that towards Andrade. But he feels as though that their relationship is no longer benefits neither one. It doesn't benefit Andrade and it doesn't benefit Eddie Hearn nor DAZN. According to Eddie Hearn, and I quote, "I expect this to be his last fight with Matchroom, to be honest with you. I think that we've sort of worked the best that we could for Demetrius Andrade without delivering him the big fights that he needed. We tried everything. It's not his fault, and I don't think it's our fault neither. I think after this fight that he should look at the option out there available to him. We've got options for him. We'll present them. We've been working real well together, but without any real benefits with each other, if that makes sense," end quote. So Eddie Hearn is saying that basically this relationship between him and Andrade just ain't been benefiting. Eddie Hearn has been unable to secure the big name fights that Demetrius Andrade should have been getting while he was over there with DAZN and Matchroom. The thing is, you know, there were plenty of fights, plenty of options on Demetrius Andrade's side of the street that just never came to fruition. And we never could understand how Eddie Hearn could not secure these fights for Demetrius Andrade. It's one thing to say, well, how hard it was for Eddie Hearn to secure the fight with, say, a Jermall Charlo, which Jermall Charlo sitting over on another network with another promoter and a whole nother brand. So the obstacles of making that fight may be a little bit tougher for Eddie Hearn to do. That's kind of understandable. But however, in the situation with, say, Andrade and Canelo, hard to understand. Between Andrade and Gennady Golovkin, hard to understand. Between Andrade and Jaime Munguia, hard to understand. These are all fighters, fight fans, in Demetrius Andrade's weight class that fights on the same networks that he does. So you got to attribute this back to Eddie Hearn, because he is the main promoter here. And it's like, why haven't you been able to make these fights? I mean, Gennady Golovkin and Canelo are actually promoted by Matchroom. Now, as for Jaime Munguia, who's associated with Oscar De La Hoya, that may be a small obstacle there because of the relationship between Oscar and Eddie at the current moment. But once again, that's Eddie Hearn's fault, fight fans, not Demetrius Andrade's. At every turn that we've seen, Demetrius Andrade have called out fighters left and right. I've always attributed Demetrius Andrade for being the main recruiter for why Gennady Golovkin wanted to come to DAZN. I get it, DAZN had Canelo Alverez, but it was Demetrius Andrade out here in all kinds of interviews that still exist to this day, all kinds of articles and all kinds of print, calling out Gennady Golovkin and asking him to come to DAZN, just to see Gennady Golovkin come to DAZN and act like Demetrius Andrade doesn't exist. It's very unfortunate, fight fans. Demetrius Andrade is a very talented fighter, and we hope the best for him, you know what I'm saying? Because it's unfortunate. We all saw his style as one of the main styles that can give Canelo Alverez problems. But unfortunately, we never got that fight. Now, when you ask yourself, why don't we get these fights? Because, yeah, okay, it's Eddie Hearn's fault, sure. But I also don't see a lot of the fighters themselves jumping at the opportunity to face Demetrius Andrade. I mean, Eddie Hearn can't force fighters to get into the ring with him unless possibly he throws a super duper bag of money. But in Canelo Alvarez's case, it don't matter. He can get paid anywhere, right? Gennady Golovkin is so fixated on Canelo Alverez where he acts like he doesn't see anyone else. And as for Jaime Munguia and Oscar, they're playing the duck goose game. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you can say to a certain degree, you don't see fighters ripping and running towards Demetrius Andrade neither. So it just was a whole bad thing for Andrade over there. The only good thing of it was, look, he stayed somewhat active. Eddie Hearn kept him fighting, kept him paid, kept a belt around his waist, things like that. Those were all kind of good things. But on far as the competition level, moving the needle for Demetrius Andrade, having his stock rising, none of those things, none of those boxes were checked by Eddie Hearn, unfortunately, fight fans. So what's the next for Demetrius Andrade, man? Now, Eddie Hearn is alluding to that he's possibly down to still work with Demetrius Andrade in the future if maybe he can secure some sort of big name fight for Andrade. But as far as being committed to Andrade, doesn't seem like Eddie Hearn is much interested. According to Eddie Hearn, he goes on to says, and I quote, "Unless we can deliver the big fights, if someone else can, he should take that route and move on. We love Demetrius, but he is at a stage in his career where he really needs the big fights. If we can land one, I'm sure he'll work with us. But if someone else can land one, that's one route that he should look at as well." End quote. Can't blame Eddie Hearn. I mean, at least he's being honest about it. He's saying that, look, we could not deliver. We just couldn't deliver. And see, this is one of the main reasons that a lot of boxers should take heed here and say, this is why I need to stay in tune with my fan base. Demetrius Andrade has fans, of course, but unfortunately what makes him not so attractive of an opponent is the fact that he does have a very dangerous style, but a lot of the fighters doesn't see the overwhelming fan base that was, come out and see Demetrius Andrade fight. So they don't maybe believe that it's a bit of risk for less of a financial gain. And also in this case with Demetrius Andrade now maybe becoming a free agent after the Zach Parker fight, I mean, it's times like this where if other promoters and other outfits see that you have a fan base that really is rallied around you, they will come to your aid and they will sign you quick, fast, and in a hurry because they know that they're bringing you and your people on board as well. But this is the power of staying engaged with your fan base. You can be the most talented fighter in the world, fight fans, but you got to keep in tune. They gotta keep in tune with their fan bases at times because it makes them good when they're free agents and they can get other offers and other fights. It makes them attractive to other fighters when fighters know that these fighters got a fan base that's rallying around them and supporting them no matter what. It puts you into more of the driver's seat, you know what I mean, when you got the people behind you. So, I mean, I hope it works out for him, man. Now, what could happen for Demetrius Andrade? I'm sure there's some options out there for him. Maybe, since Frank Warren had won this particular purse bid, maybe he could continue a relationship with Frank Warren if he defeats Zach Parker. Maybe somewhere something like that can go. I mean, also, maybe he can explore options with Premier Boxing Champions in PBC. We know back in the day that they were down to do the Charlo versus Andrade fight. Maybe that offers still stand. Maybe something to that effect can still play out. Not to mention Premier Boxing Champions have names over there within the weight class that Demetrius Andrade operated in, especially since he's at 68 now, that he can fight. Fights like David Benavidez, which has been talked about in the public. We've seen him and David Benavidez going back and forth. Fights with Caleb Plant, that's available. And a slew of other 68 fighters, as well as the Charlo fight would be much more easier for Demetrius Andrade to make. Whether the 160 Charlo or the one that he had smoked with back in the day was 54 Charlo. I don't know. You know what I mean? But either way, those are still some options for Demetrius Andrade. We also know that the outfit Pro Bellum, they're kind of trying to find their way. They're signing fighters left and right. Clarissa Shields is over there. You know what I mean? That's an option. So there's options out there for Demetrius Andrade. This is one of the main reasons perhaps why fighters like Andrade and say like a Devin Haney, they don't want to give up their world titles. Because without a world title, that also makes them less attractive to outfits, promoters, and other fighters as well. And this is why you see fighters trying to hold on to some titles with their best efforts, because they know if they let them go, they'll be less marketable and less attractive to others. Same way with Gary Russell Jr. You know what I mean, fight fans? So we'll see which way Demetrius Andrade goes. Now that we know that him and Eddie Hearn may be parting ways, this could be a blessing in disguise for Demetrius Andrade. If I'm a fan of Andrade, I would not look down upon this as bad news whatsoever. I mean, nothing was going on while he was over there with DAZN. It ain't like, yo, what are you losing? You know what I mean? It ain't like you gain anything. Maybe if he goes somewhere else, he have a better option of getting better fights. Maybe whoever he aligns himself with next have better relationships laid around boxing where they won't be stunting his growth and preventing big fights. We'll see, fight fans. Thumbs up on the way out. If you didn't hit it on the way in, share, rock them bells. I'll catch up with y'all real soon, man. To the next video. Peace out.